She thought the wolf tracks were leading her to a wounded animal. But when Mara followed them deep into the mountains, she found something no one in the kingdom had seen for 20 years. A man. Scarred. Injured. Hiding beside a dying fire. And when he opened his silver eyes, Mara realized she was standing before the Alpha King everyone believed had been dead for 2 decades. But that wasn't the most terrifying part. He wasn't alone. Dozens of wolves were waiting outside the cabin. And when they saw Mara, they lowered their heads. Because the lost king hadn't returned for his throne. He had been waiting for his mate. The first thing Mara heard was a child crying. Not loudly. That was what made it worse. The sound came through the wooden walls of the old storage shed, thin and frightened, almost swallowed by the wind that moved through the village that evening. Mara stopped carrying the basket of firewood. For a moment, she simply stood there. Snow was beginning to fall. Beyond the roofs of the village, the mountains were already disappearing beneath a grey curtain of clouds. The last light of evening rested on their peaks, turning the snow pale silver. Then the child cried again. Mara put down the wood. Everyone in the village knew what the black wagons meant. When the slave traders came, doors closed. Mothers pulled children inside. Men suddenly found reasons to be somewhere else. No one asked where the prisoners were being taken. No one asked why some of the wagons were full of children. And no one asked why the guards wore the same silver wolf emblem that had once belonged to the royal army. Mara had never been good at looking away. She walked around the shed. 2 guards were standing beside a wagon. An iron wagon. Its wheels were sunk deep into the snow, and behind the bars she saw several frightened faces. But one face was smaller than the others. A boy. He couldn't have been more than 8. His hands were wrapped around the bars. His cheeks were dirty. His eyes were enormous. When he saw Mara, he didn't speak. He only stared. Mara looked at the guards. Then at the boy. Then back at the guards. One of the men laughed. "What are you looking at?" "Nothing." "Good." Mara lowered her eyes. She picked up the basket. And walked away. 3 steps. 4. 5. Then she heard the boy whisper, "Please." Mara stopped. The word followed her like a hand reaching through the darkness. She turned. The guards were talking to each other. One had his back turned. Mara's fingers tightened around the basket handle. She hated herself for thinking about it. She hated the fear inside her. But she hated the idea of leaving that boy there even more. She dropped the basket. The sound made the guards turn. "Hey!" Mara ran. Not toward them. Past them. She kicked the wooden support beneath a stack of empty crates. The crates fell. One guard stumbled. The other swore. Mara grabbed the key ring from the man's belt and ran straight toward the wagon. Her hand shook so badly that she nearly dropped the key. "Stop her!" She found the lock. Turned it. The door opened. "Run!" The boy didn't move. Mara grabbed his arm. "Now!" He climbed out. Behind them, one of the guards recovered. He reached for Mara. Then the mountains answered. A howl rolled across the valley. Deep. Long. Not like the sound of an ordinary wolf. Every horse in the camp suddenly reared. The guards turned toward the mountains. Another howl came. Closer. One horse kicked through the side of a wagon. Wood exploded. The animal screamed. The wagon tipped sideways. Prisoners cried out. Mara pulled the boy away as chaos swallowed the camp. "Run to the village," she told him. "What about you?" "I'll follow." "You promise?" Mara looked toward the mountains. She didn't know why. But something in her chest had gone cold. "I promise." The boy ran. Mara turned. And that was when she saw them. Tracks. Fresh wolf tracks. They crossed the snow between the overturned wagon and the mountain trail. Mara crouched. The prints were enormous. Much larger than any wolf she had ever seen. But it wasn't their size that frightened her. It was how straight they were. The creature had not wandered. It had followed the wagon. Almost as if it had known exactly what was happening. Mara looked toward the mountain. She remembered the stories. Old stories. Stories told in whispers. About a king who had disappeared 20 years ago. About an alpha whose entire royal guard vanished with him. About a mountain no one entered after sunset. A place where wolves were said to guard the bones of a dead king. The boy's voice suddenly came back to her. The mountain belongs to a dead king. Mara swallowed. She should go home. She should find Eli. She should pretend she had never seen the tracks. Instead, she followed them. The snow grew deeper as she climbed. The village lights disappeared behind her. The wind became sharper. She found the first broken chain near a cluster of pine trees. Then another. Then a cart. Burned. Half buried in snow. There was blood on the wooden floor. Mara's stomach tightened. She followed the tracks farther. At last, beneath a pine branch heavy with snow, she found something caught against a broken piece of iron. Black cloth. Mara pulled it free. A silver wolf was embroidered into the fabric. Her fingers went cold. She had seen that symbol before. Everyone had. It belonged to the royal house. The house of the Alpha King who had disappeared 20 years ago. Mara looked at the mountain. The tracks continued. Higher. Deeper. Into the darkness. She whispered to herself. You're not dead. The wind answered. Then somewhere ahead, something moved. Mara froze. Two pale eyes appeared between the trees. She took one step backward. The eyes vanished. A moment later, a wolf howl rose from somewhere far above her. Mara tightened her grip around the black cloth. Whatever lived in those mountains. It had been waiting. And somehow, she had just walked straight into its path. The cabin was almost invisible. Mara would have walked past it if the wolf tracks had not led directly to the door. It was built into the mountain itself, hidden between two enormous walls of stone. There was no smoke rising from the chimney. No light behind the windows. Only blood. A thin trail of it crossed the snow and disappeared beneath the door. Mara stood there for several seconds. Her hand rested against the wooden frame. She could still turn around. She could still go back. But then she remembered Eli. And the prisoners. And the blood on the cart. She opened the door. Warmth touched her face. Inside, the room was dark except for the dying fire. And beside that fire lay a man. Mara stopped breathing. He was enormous. Broad shoulders. Dark hair. A face sharpened by years of pain. His shirt was torn open at the side, revealing old scars across his chest and ribs. One fresh wound cut deeply across his abdomen. He was unconscious. But even unconscious, there was something frightening about him. Something that made the room feel smaller. Mara approached carefully. She knelt. His skin was cold. You're going to die. His eyes opened. Silver. Mara froze. The man moved so quickly she barely saw it. 1 second she was kneeling. The next, his hand was around her wrist. Who sent you? His voice was low. Rough. Dangerously calm. No one. Lie again. I didn't lie. His grip tightened. Mara winced. If you wanted to kill me, she said quietly, you would have done it already. His eyes narrowed. You don't know what I want. I know you're bleeding on the floor. He stared at her. Mara looked down at the hand holding her. Are you finished? Something shifted in his expression. Not kindness. Not yet. But surprise. He released her. Mara stood. I have bandages. Leave. No. His eyes hardened. I said leave. And I heard you. She opened her small medical pouch. I just disagree. For several seconds, neither moved. Then the man slowly leaned back against the wall. Mara cleaned the wound. He watched her the entire time. Not once did he look away. What's your name? She asked. None of your concern. Fine. She tied the bandage. You can remain mysterious while you bleed. His mouth almost moved. Almost. A hint of amusement. Mara noticed. So you can smile. I didn't. You almost did. I didn't. She shook her head. You are difficult. So I've been told. The words were so normal that Mara almost smiled. Then she saw it. Beneath the torn fabric near his collarbone was a scar. Not an ordinary scar. A silver wolf surrounded by a crown. Mara's hand stopped. She knew that symbol. She had seen it carved above the old royal gates. The missing Alpha King's mark. Her eyes slowly rose to his face. He saw the realization happen. Everything changed. The warmth disappeared from his expression. His body became still. "Who are you?" Mara's voice was barely a whisper. The man looked toward the fire. "Someone who should have died 20 years ago." "You're... Don't. But you're the... dead." He looked back at her. "That's what they called me." Mara stared at him. The stories returned to her. The lost king. The vanished guard. The kingdom that had collapsed into years of political fighting after his disappearance. She looked at the scars on his body. At the silver eyes. At the royal mark. "You're Kael." His jaw tightened. Mara whispered the rest. "Alpha King Kael." He looked away. "Dead kings belong in graves." Mara studied him. Then the scars. Then the man beneath them. "Then why," she asked quietly, "do you look like one who survived?" Silence. Kael's eyes returned to hers. For the first time, Mara saw something beneath his anger. Pain. Deep enough that he had built an entire life around hiding it. Neither spoke. Outside, wolves began howling. One. Then another. Then dozens. Kael closed his eyes. Mara looked toward the window. "What do they want?" Kael answered without opening his eyes. "To know if I'm still alive." Mara's heart beat faster. "And are you?" His eyes opened. Silver met hers. "Unfortunately." The wolves howled again. And this time, Mara understood. They were not calling for a dead king. They were calling for their king to come home. Mara returned to the village before dawn. She told herself she was only going to make sure Eli was safe. She told herself she would leave the mountains behind. She told herself many things. None of them lasted long. The village was quiet. Too quiet. Mara entered through the eastern road. There were soldiers everywhere. Men searched houses. They checked barns. They opened sheds. And every few steps she heard the same question. "Where is the boy?" Mara stopped behind a stone wall. Her stomach dropped. Eli had not gone home. She found him hiding beneath an overturned cart. His face was wet with tears. When he saw her, he ran into her arms. "They came for me." "I know. They said I belonged to them." Mara held him tightly. "They're not taking you." She looked toward the soldiers. Then toward the mountain. She had no choice. She took Eli back. When they reached Kael's cabin, he was standing near the door. His expression darkened immediately. "No." Mara walked inside. "Eli, sit near the fire." Kael stared at the boy. Then at Mara. "I said no. And I heard you. This place isn't safe. Neither is the village." Kael's eyes narrowed. "You brought a child into a mountain surrounded by soldiers and wolves." Mara faced him. He was already surrounded by worse. Silence. Kael looked at Eli. The boy shrank back. Something flickered across Kael's face. He turned away. "Give him food." Mara almost smiled. "You said no." "I changed my mind." "That's convenient." Kael ignored her. That night, Eli slept near the fire. Mara stayed awake. Kael sat beside the window, sharpening a knife. Neither spoke. Hours passed. Then Eli woke screaming. Mara rushed toward him. But Kael moved first. He crossed the room and dropped beside the boy. Eli was shaking. He didn't seem to realize who was holding him. His small hand grabbed Kael's sleeve. Kael froze. Mara stopped. For a moment, Kael looked almost terrified. Not angry. Not powerful. Terrified. Then he slowly sat down. He didn't touch the boy. He simply stayed. Eli's breathing gradually slowed. The child fell asleep against Kael's arm. Mara watched. Kael stared into the fire. You don't have to stay, she whispered. I know. But you are. Kael didn't answer. Morning came quietly. Eli was still asleep. Mara prepared food. Kael stood near the doorway. Why are they looking for him? Mara looked up. Eli answered before she could. Because I saw. Kael's face changed. Saw what? The wagons. The boy swallowed. They took children from other villages. Kael said nothing. They sold them. His hand tightened around the knife. To whom? People across the border. Mara watched Kael. His voice remained calm. Too calm. How long? Eli shook his head. I don't know. Kael looked at Mara. They've been doing this longer than you think. She understood. You knew. I suspected. That's why you were captured. Kael nodded. I spent years collecting proof. And someone betrayed you. His silence was answer enough. Mara stepped closer. Who? The council. She stared. The kingdom's council. Some of them. Kael looked toward the mountains. They needed someone to blame for what happened 20 years ago. And you were convenient. They told the kingdom I abandoned my people. Mara's voice softened. But you didn't. Kael looked at Eli. No. He had saved people. Even after 20 years. Even after losing everything. Mara realized something then. The man in front of her wasn't simply hiding. He was waiting. Waiting for the truth to become strong enough to survive him. And if the council really was involved, the people hunting Eli weren't simply slave traders. They were protecting a secret. A secret that had survived 20 years. And Kael had finally returned to uncover it. The entrance to the library was hidden behind a wall of stone. Kael pushed a narrow section near the fireplace. Something clicked. The wall moved. Eli stared. Mara stared. Kael simply walked inside. How many secrets are in this mountain? Kael glanced back. More than I remember. The passage descended beneath the cabin. The air became colder. Then they reached a massive stone door. Kael placed his hand against it. The door opened. Mara stepped inside. The library seemed endless. Tall shelves rose into darkness. Old maps covered the walls. Royal records filled wooden cabinets. Dust lay everywhere. But there were signs that someone had been here before. A chair. A candle. A blanket. Kael walked slowly between the shelves. Mara noticed the change in him. He wasn't the Alpha King now. He was a young man walking through the remains of his childhood. He stopped beside a shelf. Ran his fingers over a book. This was my mother's. Mara said nothing. He opened it. The first page contained a handwritten note. Kael read it. His face became still. What? He closed the book. Nothing. Mara took it gently from his hand. Inside was a family record. Names. Dates. Royal births. Royal deaths. Then something else. A report from 20 years ago. The official version claimed that the royal guard betrayed Kael. But another document, hidden beneath it, told a different story. The guards had been transporting prisoners to safety. They were ambushed. The attack had been planned. Mara looked up. Someone wanted you gone. Kael's jaw tightened. Yes. Why? Because I refused to let the council control the border territories. Mara looked at the records. Slave routes. Territory maps. Payments. Names. Everything was connected. Then Eli called from another shelf. Mara. She walked toward him. He was holding a sealed document. Kael took it. The seal carried the same silver wolf. He broke it. Inside was an ancient prophecy. Mara read the first lines. The lost Alpha shall return when mercy opens the door that power could not. Kael frowned. Old superstition. She continued. The bond shall not begin with desire. Kael looked at her. It shall awaken through choosing. Neither spoke. Mara lowered the page. Choosing what? Kael looked away. Nothing. She almost smiled. You're very bad at pretending not to care. He didn't answer. Later, Eli slept near the fire. Mara sat across from Kael. The library was quiet. A single flame moved between them. For the first time, Kael spoke without being asked. I was 23. Mara looked at him. When it happened. He stared into the fire. I thought I could protect everyone. His voice was quiet. I thought being king meant nothing could reach them. Mara listened. It took one night. He swallowed. I watched people die. His fingers tightened. I heard them calling for me. Mara wanted to say something. Anything. But every comforting word sounded too small. So she remained silent. Kael looked at her. You aren't going to tell me it wasn't my fault? No. His eyebrows lifted slightly. Why? Because I don't know if it was. He stared. Mara continued. But I know you survived. Something changed in his face. I spent 20 years believing survival was proof that I failed them. Mara's voice softened. Maybe survival was the only reason they still have a chance to know the truth. Kael looked at her for a long time. Then he looked away. Neither touched. Neither confessed anything. But something had shifted. The space between them no longer felt like distance. It felt like trust beginning. And somewhere deep inside Kael's chest, his wolf stirred. The soldiers arrived 3 days later. Mara heard them before she saw them. Boots. Metal. Horses. Kael stood at the mouth of the cave. He didn't look frightened. He looked tired. They know. Mara stepped beside him. About you. About everything. Eli stood behind them. Kael turned. Take him through the lower passage. Mara shook her head. No. That wasn't a request. And I'm not your soldier. Kael looked at her. For a moment, the old Alpha authority filled the cave. Mara did not move. You cannot protect everyone by ordering them away. His expression hardened. You don't understand. I understand enough. The soldiers shouted outside. Then a voice echoed through the mountain. Kael. Mara recognized it. Elder Gerrick. The most powerful member of the council. The real Alpha King died 20 years ago. Gerrick's voice carried through the snow. You are an imposter. Kael's eyes became cold. Mara remembered the records. She pulled them from her bag. Gerrick's name was there. Payments. Shipments. Prisoner numbers. Her heart raced. You knew. Kael looked at her. Gerrick. Mara nodded. He was part of it. Kael closed his eyes. For a second, he seemed to age. Then he looked at Mara. You and Eli leave. No. If they capture me, you can still escape. I'm not leaving. His voice dropped. Why? Mara looked at him. Because you've spent 20 years trying to carry everything alone. He said nothing. And it didn't save you. The words struck him. Mara continued. It didn't bring your people back. Kael looked toward the mountains. I am afraid. She had never heard him say those words. Of what? His answer came quietly. Losing someone again. Mara's expression softened. You don't have to lose everyone. The soldiers moved closer. Kael reached for his sword. But Mara opened the records. Wait. She showed him the payment records. Gerrick. Kael read them. His eyes hardened. They had enough. Not enough to win. But enough to make people question the council. Enough to break the lie. Kael looked at the papers. Then at Mara. We return. To the kingdom. Yes. You'll be captured. Maybe. Mara frowned. That doesn't sound like a plan. It isn't. He looked at the soldiers outside. It's a beginning. They escaped through the lower tunnel. That night, beneath a sky full of stars, Kael stopped beside a frozen river. He reached beneath his coat and handed Mara his royal dagger. She stared at it. This belonged to you. It still does. Then why give it to me? Kael looked directly into her eyes. Because if I don't return, someone needs to carry the truth. Mara closed her fingers around the dagger. I won't let you make that sound like goodbye. He looked away. It isn't. But his voice was almost a whisper. And for the first time, Mara understood. He wasn't giving her a weapon. He was giving her the part of himself he trusted most. They found the slave convoy at sunset. 6 wagons. 20 guards. Too many prisoners to count. Kael crouched behind the rocks. Mara knelt beside him. Eli stayed hidden behind a tree. Kael watched the convoy. His face changed. Mara knew that expression. Pain. Recognition. Memory. 20 years earlier, he had watched something similar. People taken. Chains. Wagons. His kingdom falling apart. He could walk away now. No one would blame him. Mara touched his arm. Kael looked at her. Are you going to keep running? His eyes hardened. No. They moved. Mara reached the first wagon. The lock opened. 1 prisoner. Then another. Kael attacked the guards from the opposite side. He moved like someone who had spent 20 years remembering how to survive. Not reckless. Not wild. Controlled. Every movement was precise. Eli crawled beneath the final wagon. He found a small cage. Inside was a little girl. She was crying. Are you going to hurt me? Eli shook his head. No. Then why are you here? To get you out. His fingers shook as he worked the lock. It opened. The girl crawled into his arms. Are we going to die? Eli looked toward the burning torch in the distance. Then back at her. Not tonight. Mara heard him. Her eyes filled with tears. Then a guard grabbed her. The knife pressed against her throat. Drop it. Mara froze. Kael saw them. Everything stopped. His eyes became silver. The guard smiled. King or not, you're too late. Kael moved. The blade meant for Mara entered his side instead. He dropped to one knee. Kael. Mara caught him. Blood soaked her hands. He looked at her. Keep moving. No. Mara. No. Her voice broke. You don't get to save me and then die. Something almost like a smile crossed his face. Still giving orders. She pressed her hands against the wound. Yes. Together, they finished. The final prisoners escaped. The guards fled. Silence fell. Kael stood slowly. His eyes went to the wagon. The iron bars. The chains. The same kind of cage that had carried innocent people for years. He took a torch. Mara watched him walk toward it. He stood there for a long moment. Then he threw the flame inside. Fire climbed the wood. The prisoners watched. The iron began to glow. Chains fell apart. Kael did not look away. 20 years of memories burned in front of him. Mara stepped beside him. Are you all right? No. She looked at him. But I will be. The wagon collapsed into flames. For the first time in 20 years, Kael had destroyed something connected to his past. Not because he wanted revenge. Because he wanted the future. The fire reflected in his silver eyes. And somewhere beyond the trees, wolves began to howl. This time, they were not mourning. They were calling. Kael's wound became worse before dawn. By the time they reached the library, he was barely standing. Mara pushed him toward the bed. Sit. I'm fine. You are bleeding through your shirt. I've had worse. That's not comforting. He almost smiled. Then his knees gave way. Mara caught him. For the next several days, she barely left his side. She changed his bandages. She cooled his fever. She forced him to drink. She slept in a chair beside the bed. Kael complained about everything. The medicine. The food. The blankets. Mara ignored him. One night, he woke. The fire was low. Mara was asleep beside him. Her head rested against the chair. Kael watched her. There was something peaceful about her when she slept. Something he had not seen in years. He whispered. You should leave. Mara opened her eyes. I heard you. You should go before I destroy your life. She sat up. You don't get to decide that. I know what follows me. So do I. You don't. I do. Kael looked away. Mara stood. You think being alone protects people? He said nothing. It doesn't. His jaw tightened. You don't know what happened. Then tell me. Silence. Finally, Kael spoke. I was captured. Mara listened. They took my guards first. His voice became quieter. Then my family. He looked at the fire. I heard them. His hand shook. I couldn't save them. Mara stepped closer. I survived because my wolf carried me away. He looked at her. I spent 20 years believing that made me a coward. Mara shook her head. It made you alive. His eyes filled with something she had never seen there. Relief. Pain. Maybe both. Survival isn't betrayal, Kael. He looked down. For a long time, neither spoke. Then something moved outside. A shadow passed the window. Kael stood. His wolf appeared beyond the doorway. Huge. Silver. Eyes glowing beneath the moonlight. Mara froze. The wolf stepped inside. Kael watched in disbelief. It walked toward Mara. Slowly. Carefully. Mara held out her hand. The wolf lowered its head. Its nose touched her palm. Warmth spread through Mara's chest. She gasped. Kael stared. The ancient prophecy returned to his mind. The bond shall awaken through choosing. Not desire. Not possession. Mercy. Trust. Choice. He understood. All the moments. The food she had brought. The boy she had saved. The prisoners. The nights she stayed. The fact that she had seen his broken pieces and never asked him to hide them. His wolf had known long before he did. Kael reached for her hand. Mara looked at him. He hesitated. For perhaps the first time in his life, the Alpha King waited for someone else to choose. Mara placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers. Warmth moved between them. Neither pulled away. Mara. She looked at him. I don't know what happens next. Neither do I. But I'm afraid. So am I. He breathed slowly. Then stay. Her eyes softened. Okay. Outside, the silver wolf lifted its head. A howl echoed through the mountains. Mara leaned closer. Kael's forehead touched hers. There was no grand declaration. No rush. Just two people who had both survived things they thought would destroy them. And finally, neither of them was alone. They did not say the word mate. They didn't need to. Their wolves already had. 20 years after he disappeared, Kael walked through the gates of his kingdom. Mara walked beside him. Eli followed. Behind them came the people they had rescued. The city fell silent. No one knew what to say. The palace had changed. The old banners were gone. New ones hung from the towers. But the stone beneath them was the same. Kael stopped. He looked at the palace. Mara watched his face. This was home. Once. Are you ready? Kael looked at her. No. She smiled faintly. Good. He raised an eyebrow. Good. At least you're honest. For the first time, Kael smiled. They entered the square. Elder Garrick stood before the council. He was older now. His hair was white. His face carried 20 years of power. When he saw Kael, his expression changed. Then he recovered. You. Kael said nothing. Garrick raised his voice. This man is an imposter. The crowd murmured. The Real King died 20 years ago. Kael remained silent. Then an old warrior stepped forward. He stared at Kael's collarbone. At the royal scar. His eyes widened. No. Garrick turned. The warrior dropped to his knees. My king. The crowd went silent. Another wolf lowered its head. Then another. Then another. Within moments, the entire square was filled with wolves kneeling in the snow. Garrick shouted. Stand! No one moved. Mara stepped forward. She opened the leather case containing the records. You should read these. Garrick's face changed. She placed the first document on the council table. Payments. The second. Prisoner shipments. The third. Names of royal guards. The fourth. Garrick's signature. The square erupted. People shouted. Some cried. Others stared at the council in disbelief. Kael looked at Garrick. For one moment, Mara saw the anger in him. 20 years of it. 20 years of pain. He could end it now. Garrick seemed to understand. Do it, he whispered. Kael stepped toward him. Everyone waited. But Kael lowered his sword. No. Garrick looked confused. You don't deserve death. Kael's voice was calm. You deserve to live long enough to hear every name of the people you sold. The guards seized Garrick. He was dragged away. The crowd slowly became quiet. Kael turned toward them. I left this kingdom 20 years ago. His voice carried across the square. I believed I had lost everything. He looked at the people. I believed my failure was the reason my kingdom fell. Then he looked at Mara. She stood several steps away. He walked toward her. But I was wrong. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. I did not lose everything. His voice softened. I simply hadn't found the person who would teach me how to live again. Mara's eyes filled with tears. Kael looked toward the gathered packs. This woman stood beside me when I had no crown. He raised their joined hands. When I had no army. He looked at Mara. When I believed I had nothing left to give. The bond awakened fully. Mara felt warmth spread through every part of her. Her wolf answered his. A collective gasp moved through the crowd. Kael smiled. This is my mate. Mara looked at him. He continued. But she is not standing beside me because the bond commands her. His thumb moved gently across her hand. She is standing here because she chose me. He turned toward her. And I choose her. Mara swallowed. Then choose me every day. Kael's eyes softened. Every day. Eli stood nearby. For the first time since Mara had found him in that wagon, he was smiling without fear. Kael looked toward him. Come here. Eli ran to them. Kael placed one hand on the boy's shoulder. You saved a child before you ever knew what courage was. Eli looked embarrassed. Mara smiled. The sun began to rise over the mountains. The same mountains that had hidden Kael for 20 years. The same mountains where Mara had found the first wolf tracks. The same mountains where Broken King had learned how to trust again. Kael looked toward the horizon. Then at Mara. Do you remember the first night? The tracks? He nodded. I thought they were leading me to a dead king. Kael smiled. And instead. Mara looked at him. They led me to someone who was still waiting to come home. His hand tightened around hers. Around them, the wolves lowered their heads. Not in fear. Not because they had been ordered. But because their king had returned. And this time, he did not stand alone. Mara stood beside him. Eli stood beside them. And beyond the kingdom, the mountains carried the sound of wolves into the morning. For 20 years, those mountains had been hiding a secret. A king. A betrayal. A kingdom's lost truth. But the greatest thing hidden among those peaks had not been a crown. It had been a heart that had survived long enough to love again. And it all began with a girl who refused to look away. When everyone else did.